The men's swimming and diving team have won 4 consecutive national championships. On Friday, the team split up for the annual Orange and White scrimmage at the Lee and Joe Jamel Swimming Center to get back in the swing of competition and prepare for what lies ahead this season. The Texas Longhorns won their 14th straight victory on Saturday night against the TCU Horned Frogs. Despite playing teams of various calibers throughout their win streak, there is no shortage of motivation for Jared Elliott's team. So at least Texas fans did have one victory over OU this weekend to be happy about. Texas women's volleyball beat the Sooners in a sweep, remaining undefeated in Big 12 play. Nick, what players had standout performances this weekend? Speaking of that, with the win, Texas is now ranked number 4 in the nation with an 11-2 overall record. While Texas has had big wins against teams like Minnesota and BYU, some skeptics believe that Texas has still had an overall weak schedule thus far this season. So Nick, is their ranking of number 4 deserved, and is this team championship material? Well, just like the eyes of Texas, the NBA season is upon you. The first night of 2019-2020 NBA regular season basketball will be October 22nd, and this season is as hyped as an NBA season has been in recent memory, with a great feeling of uncertainty for the first time in a few years. Since all the excitement is still in the Western Conference, let's get a recap of some Western Conference teams' moves this offseason, as well as play one of the oldest games in the history of sports called Over or Under, where I will give you what Vegas projects as the win totals for several teams and tell you whether each respective team will win over or under that many games. So with the Clippers and Lakers both making huge upgrades this offseason, many fans believe the battle for the NBA title will go through the Staples Center one way or another. So which team runs LA? Well, I think the Lakers have a slightly better dynamic duo. LeBron James and Anthony Davis are just a tad better, in my opinion, than Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. However, I do believe the Clippers' overall team is slightly better with their depth. They are a much better defensive team who will still generate plenty of offense. Therefore, I think the Clippers are the current kings of LA, but I'm sure that the king will have something to say about that. Fans in Houston believe they have lifted off by acquiring Russell Westbrook from the Oklahoma City Thunder in exchange for Chris Paul and draft picks. The reunification of Westbrook and Harden, I am taking the way under on that, and I cannot believe it is even that high. Well, so far I would say that Texas has kind of had a back-and-forth season. Every win or losing streak has always lasted at least 2 games. They go on hot streaks, sometimes 3 or 4 wins in a row, like they had a streak between the 22nd of September and October 3rd where they won Grambling State, Kansas State, and TCU. But they've also had 3 separate occasions where they've lost 2 games in a row. So overall, it has not been a very consistent season, but just looking at their overall record, 9-6 and 4-2 in conference, I think up to this point it's fair to say it's been a relatively strong season, just given those records and standings. Well, just this last game against Baylor, it was pretty even across the board. If you look at shots on goal, saves, and corners, Texas didn't really have a supreme advantage or disadvantage in any of the categories, but for the whole season, one of their big strengths has definitely been their goalie, Nicole Curry. She was named the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. They kind of need to find a way to bounce back from losses with a win instead of another loss, because if they keep doing these 4-for-3, 3-for-2 win-lose trades, they're going to end up with an okay season, but not certainly the success they're looking for. I mean, they're looking at potentially being Big 12 champions, and that's obviously what their ultimate goal is. Welcome back to College Press Box. I'm Henry Corwin, joined alongside Bailey Wall. Even though we've already broken down this year's Red River Showdown earlier in the show, we can never get enough football here in Texas. But instead of college or even pro football, let's hear about some high school football from our very Herman in this week's edition of Unhooked. So let's head down to the Cotton Bowl Stadium for the highlights. We're going to start off in the first quarter. Jalen Hurts hands it off to number 26, Kennedy Brooks, for the nice game there. Brooks finished with 105 rushing yards on the game. Later on in the first drive, Hurts finds C.D. Lamb for the touchdown. To start off the game on the first possession, Lamb had a huge game for Oklahoma. Later on in the quarter, Hurts takes off and runs for a huge gain, a first down and more, but the ball comes loose at the end of the run inside the 15. It is a fumble recovered by Texas. Ensuing possession, Edgar finds number 9, Colin Johnson, perhaps his favorite target, for the gain. Johnson had 6 receptions for 82 yards on the game. As we move into the second quarter, Hurts with the play action that will fool even the cameraman, and he'll scramble off to the right under pressure, throws off his back foot, and it is intercepted by Brandon Jones in the end zone. Rare pick there by Hurts, as Jones able to anticipate the throw and leave his receiver to grab it. Right before the half, Cameron Dicker is not fazed by Oklahoma's 3 timeouts, and he nails the 49-yard field goal to make the score 10-3 going into the half. In the third quarter now, Ellinger hands the ball off to number 2, Roshan Johnson, for a 57-yard gain. Texas really tried to establish a run, and they do so this play. On the next play, Sam hands the ball off to Johnson again, and he fights his way in for the touchdown, and with the extra point, the game is tied at 10. But on the next possession, the play of the game right here, Hurts hands it off to Brooks, but it's a flea flicker, and Hurts finds a wide open CeeDee Lamb, who avoids not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 Texas defenders to score the touchdown to put the Sooners back up. In the fourth quarter now, Ehlinger is able to find the end zone with the rushing touchdown. He actually rushed for 2 touchdowns on this game, but it would not be enough for the Horns, as the Sooners, a touchdown better than Texas on Saturday, and they win 34-27.
Maryland's quarterback Tyler Pigrom complete 9 of his final 11 passes down the stretch. And then against USC down the stretch, after Sam Ehlinger gives them the 3-point lead with 45 seconds left, all they need is one more stop. Their secondary cannot get it done in crunch time. And obviously, you know, USC went on to win the game in overtime, so they're just going to have their secondary step up, not just the whole game, but specifically down the stretch when it matters. The poise that this freshman showed going into USC, first road game of his career in front of 84,000 fans, to lead his team down the field, trailing by 4 points, to get the go-ahead touchdown in such a hostile environment, I think he showed great poise. And to bench him now after that, if they want a confident quarterback into the future, I think it would just be taking a step back to not have him under center. And what I think could be very interesting is if we see this diffuse to other sports, specifically the NBA, because there is a rule in the NBA that players must be standing during the national anthem. So if an NBA player decides they don't want to stand, they want to kneel, I think it'd be very interesting to see what the repercussions could be. From a talent standpoint, this team stacks up better than any other team in the West against Golden State. But the problem is you have 3 ball-dominant players. They all need the ball in their hands to be successful. And this is not the same as Miami's Big Three or the Cavs' original Big Three. With Chris Bosh and Kevin Love, respectively, they didn't need the ball in their hands. They could catch and shoot. But Melo, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, they were all in the top 20 last year in usage rates. And I just think against a team like Golden State, who's already been very developed with their chemistry, I just think their chances are still slim to beat Golden State.
Where would you say they would be in the conference?
I would put them, I could see them potentially getting to the Western Conference Finals. And listen, I hope that's what happens. I would love to see Golden State versus Oklahoma City. So I'd say they're somewhere between the 2nd and 4th seed. But the bottom line is, even if they get to the Western Conference Finals, I think there's still no shot that they would beat a team like Golden State.
Are we even sure that Baylor is better than Texas? Because Baylor has not played yet any of the teams in the Big 12 that Texas has lost to. Texas lost to Oklahoma and TCU. Baylor has not played them. They haven't come up on the schedule. We'll see from those games, maybe get a little bit of a better idea.
Playing for Texas is different than playing for other schools. With high expectations of winning, the pressure can mount with each loss. Coming off of their loss against TCU, the expectations for this Texas team going into their game against Kansas State were probably as low as they've been all season. Knowing that, Coach Herman spoke at his presser about how important it was for his team to stick together.
Teams that don't believe, teams that don't have confidence, teams that aren't together and play for each other, that doesn't happen. And so, obviously extremely proud of the win, but definitely more importantly, the things that this crew has been through these last few weeks, to overcome what they overcame, it was special.
After the game, kicker Cameron Dicker spoke about the leadership inside the Texas locker room after last game's loss against TCU and how it sparked a win on Saturday.
After the game, I think Roach came up and talked to us, and he was like, hey, we all just need to come together, like love each other more, because we've been through a lot together, all the workouts we come in over the summer, early in the morning, and so kind of coming together and coming out and winning this game was really big for us. And going down 14, nobody was like trash talking each other, and so it was really cool to see that our team kind of just could come together and come out with the win.
Texas's next matchup will be next week at Iowa State. From the Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, I'm Henry Corwin, TSTV Sports. While several Texas teams have failed to live up to expectations in the past half-decade, there's one team that has satisfied its fans time and time again. The men's swimming and diving team have won 4 consecutive national championships. On Friday, the team split up for the annual orange and white scrimmage at the Lee and Joe Jamel Swimming Center to get back in the swing of competition and prepare for what lies ahead this season as they look for their 5th straight title. According to freestyle swimmer Drew Kibler, one particular strength sticks out about this year's team that can help them defend their crown.
A extremely large freshman class this year with a lot of talent. There's always a very good freshman class, but this year it's especially big and talented, and I think it's going to bring a lot of young excitement to the team. The leaders on this team are incredible. There's just great leadership from top to bottom, and I think we have a lot of momentum after the past 4 wins, and we're just going to carry through to this NCAAs.
The freshman class have made such an impact early on that even the veterans of the team are taking notice.
It was great to see how fast everyone went. Especially the freshmen, they killed it. Like I said earlier, the breaststroke, and then Danny went in the 50 and the 100, and Drew went in the 500. So it's looking really good for this year.
The team begins their quest for 5 in a row on Friday, October 19th against Indiana. For College Press Box, I'm Henry Corwin. Now, back to the studio.